Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
Sending the boys away, Shiro sat down and massaged her eyes. "Look at you, reeling in the boys." Lyrica giggled as she walked over and sat down next to Shiro. "A boon/curse I would be rather content with not having." Shiro sighed. "Ha ha ha, a lot of girls would want the attention you're getting." Lyrica laughed, seeing Shiro struggle. Shiro rolled her eyes, but had a small smile on her lips. "That being said, don't you have anyone lining up to take you as their partner?" Shiro asked. "Ahaha, that's a little complicated." Lyrica smiled wearily. Seems like she had a story to tell. Shiro thought, but decided to not pursue this matter. Feeling a glare on her, Shiro turned her head and saw a few girls whispering to each other and pointed at her. "And what do you think they're talking about?" "Men? I don't think you want to know." Lyrica shook her head. She didn't want Shiro to experience mental bullying from girls due to their jealousy. "I kill monsters for a living. I don't think a lot of things can harm me." Shiro typed out. She didn't know what was so bad about what they could be talking about. Not to mention, Shiro was quite curious about what normal girls do around her age. Due to her unfortunate kidnapping after the village was raided, she never truly experienced what girls do her age. "I guess so, but it's still not very pleasant to be ostracized, so just don't pay them any attention," Lyrica said. Seeing her constant refusal, Shiro could only nod her head. It didn't matter too much if she didn't know. She had Lyrica to spend her time with anyways. The spars continued as it was Lyrica's turn to try survive against the teacher. Since she couldn't use her actual weapon, Lyrica could only settle with a staff. Her movements were a little awkward, but she could still put up a much better fight than when she just used a single long sword. The teacher was dancing circles around Lyrica with a series of careful, concise footsteps. However, this didn't affect Lyrica as her hidden proficiency displayed how powerful it was, with just a mere fraction of its power. Sweeping clockwise with her foot, Lyrica created a little zone for herself as the teacher hopped backwards slightly. Smiling lightly, the teacher entered the zone with minimal care. However, that overconfidence bit her back quickly as the staff end entered her view quickly. "Ohia?" Lyrica's already forming her attack domain using the hidden proficiency. Shiro thought impressed. An attack domain was the stage before a full domain. It is a small concentrated area where the fighter would have pure concentration reaching 120%. Not many can break this attack domain without their own. There are several forms to the attack domain which varies from weapon to weapon. Bow and arrows formed a donut-shaped attack domain. Anything around the mid-range area is the bow and arrows home turf. Staffs have an hourglass type of attack domain. The ends of the staff contain the most amount of power, yet the center lacks diversity. The sword and greatsword have very similar attack domains as it is shaped like a semicircle. It is harder to attack properly when the swordsman tried to strike behind him. But the frontal power held much diversity with an all-rounder type attack domain. Axes and maces had a much narrower attack domain, but their power compensates. With fast-moving rotations, the axe and maces are the powerhouses. There are more, but the dagger's attack domain is one of Shiro's favorites. It didn't have the power of the sword, nor the range of a bow. However, the piercing and the undisputed close combat prowess, along with the diversity, made it an attack domain that needed to be feared. For Lyrica to almost construct her attack domain without even using the staff for long truly shows the prowess of the hidden proficiencies. Not even Shiro, who used to have full body control, could form her attack domain with her weapon yet. One may call it unfair for Lyrica to gain the attack domain without hard work, but the hidden proficiency was an inborn gift. A natural talent is a part of one's fighting prowess, and luck played a big part in life, whether one denied it or not. Tilting her head to quickly dodge the staff strike, the teacher grabbed towards the staff. Lyrica allowed the teacher to grab as she used the force to propel herself forward and sweep a kick towards her head. The teacher flipped backwards, dodging the kick. It was a shame that Lyrica's stats were lacking, or else she would put up a good fight against the teacher. Is this still the same Lyrica? She's so good at fighting. True. Seems like it was her level holding her back. So I'm looking at her, and is it just me, or is she really, really beautiful? Now that you mention it, if you look closer, isn't Lyrica really attractive when she's focused? How did we not notice earlier? She was so quiet before and hardly joined in. Shiro smiled, hearing the compliments towards Lyrica. She knew Lyrica was a beauty that only had a slight problem with her lack of confidence before. Her small aura and behavior made it hard for people to notice her beauty since she was always looking down. However, at this moment, Lyrica was solely focused on the teacher as she wanted to defeat the teacher and prove her worth. Her gaze was focused as her normally rounded eyes became sharp. There wasn't the casual smile she had, but instead was replaced by a serious frown. Her expression gave people the feeling of heroism and bravery as she fearlessly charged towards the teacher. Stabbing her staff towards the teacher, Lyrica transitioned into a vault and gave the teacher a roundhouse kick. The teacher dodged, but it didn't slow down Lyrica's assault at all. Following up on the momentum of her kick, she landed on her foot and swung the staff towards the teacher. Her movements from her hidden proficiency was a combination of different martial art movements. The current form was similar to the Chinese Shaolin monk staff arts. Her spare hand was used to balance her body while she kept low on the ground, giving her a very stable foundation and a hard-to-topple balance. A little staff martial arts? How fun! The teacher smiled as her eyes narrowed, and she took her own form. She dashed towards Lyrica, clearly wanting to initiate the fight rather than wait. Once the teacher entered her attack domain, Lyrica stabbed the staff towards the teacher. Dawn. Slamming her palm against the flat end of the staff, the teacher stomped backwards to transfer the force before grabbing the staff and hit it with her spare hand. Snap. The staff snapped in half as Lyrica's demeanor shattered along with it. Without her hidden proficiency assisting her, Lyrica was just an inexperienced adventurer who was no match for the seasoned teacher. Lyrica raised her hands in defeat as the teacher was able to wipe the floor with her. Learn some hand-to-hand combat. You need to have a backup in case you lose your weapon, the teacher advised as Lyrica nodded and walked away. Shiro patted the seat next to her as Lyrica sat down heavily. Passing Lyrica a bottle of water, Shiro watched her drink it all in one go. Ah, refreshing, Lyrica said, feeling rejuvenated. Nice work, Lyrica. Shiro smiled. Ah, it's a little frustrating though. Lyrica smiled sadly. Why? I wanted to win so bad. Even with this boost, I still couldn't defeat her. Don't compare yourself like that. You're trying to compare in the wrong territory. I know, but you would have won against her. Lyrica sighed. No, I won't. What do you mean? Her status, experience, and body control are all factored in when she fights. You're trying to compare with a seasoned veteran with only a limited arsenal and power. That is how you become depressed. Shiro shook her head. Being competitive is good, but there is a limit called the achievable target. Above this target, and one would be chasing an unreachable star, thus breaking their spirit more times than boosting it. One had to be careful when choosing a target as it would encourage improvement. But I thought you said the hidden proficiency was powerful. I still couldn't defeat her. Lyrica pouted. You know how many people would have wanted to strangle you for saying that? Shiro chuckled slightly. The hidden proficiency is powerful, but it is just a jump start. It's not omnipotent, as one's hard work would hone the hidden proficiency further. And even those without a hidden proficiency can defeat the talented with enough hard work. But aren't there ones you cannot surpass without talent? What about them? Lyrica asked. Are you untalented? Do you not have a hidden proficiency? Have you not grasped the boundaries of an attack domain at a young age? Shiro asked rhetorically as Lyrica had no answer. Not many people have the benefit of receiving a hidden proficiency. Be grateful and work hard to further your talent. Slap. Lyrica slapped her cheeks, shocking Shiro. You're right. I can't be such a spoiled brat, Lyrica said with flushed-up cheeks from the slaps. Ow. Why did you have to hit that hard? Shiro chuckled. It was meant to be a wake-up call for me, but it hurts more than I thought, Lyrica said with little droplets of tears forming. Shiro only chuckled before wiping the tears away with her fingers, which caused Lyrica to blush slightly. After resting for a bit, you should keep trying to face the teacher to get experience, Shiro suggested. All right. Lyrica stuttered as she jogged away to get a new weapon. Shiro only shook her head. Why does this girl get so flustered so much? She thought. Hey Shiro, the teacher called out. Yes? Since you're an ice mage, why don't you have a slight spar with me? But you don't need to move from your space, but instead try to attack me with your magic. The teacher suggested. Sure. What's my win condition? Just restrain me within the time limit? The teacher smiled. Sure. I'll grab a chair so I can sit down in the middle. Get a little comfy. The teacher only shrugged as she waited for Shiro. Grabbing a stool, Shiro placed it in the center before sitting down and crossed her legs. Ready when you are. Shiro typed out as a light smile hung on her lips. Getting her confirmation, the teacher hopped a little on the spot to warm herself up. She's heard of how abnormal Shiro was from the other teachers and wanted to see if her experience truly matched up with veterans. 3. The students gathered up in a 50-diameter circle around them as they watched with interest. This was a rare battle between the highest-level student and the sparring teacher. Level 25 Shiro vs. a level 35 teacher. 2. Lyrica watched in anxiousness as she was worried about how Shiro would fare with her arm. 1. Geo. The teacher shouted as Shiro's aura changed instantly. *CRRR. Ice spread out in a circle with her being the source. The teacher jumped up slightly as she dodged the initial freezing. Shiro didn't let her off as she flipped her left hand and several ice spikes shot towards the teacher. The teacher had a serious expression as she twisted her body and stepped onto the spike before jumping off. Not even a second after landing, an ice cage was already halfway formed with her inside it. Roundhouse kicking one of the ice spikes, the teacher escaped the entrapment. Before she could even sigh out a breath of relief, the broken shard of the ice cage expanded and latched onto her arm. Tisk! The teacher clicked her tongue before clenching her hand and shattered the ice. Seeing this, Shiro could only smile bitterly and shake her head. Her experience and skill were there, but the stats were not. The teacher could simply overwhelm her with brute strength. However, she wouldn't go without a fight. Her eyes glowed with a slight blue as she snapped her fingers, causing an ice forest to appear. Waving her left hand, spears shot towards the teacher from the ice trees. The teacher was basically attacked from every direction she could have been. To make matters worse, they were fired with different time intervals as it would be hard for her to strike everything down in one go. The teacher narrowed her eyes before crossing her arms in front of her and charged towards Shiro. She decided to end this farce and break through with force. She saw Shiro smile and frowned. Such a shame. Perhaps if my stats were a little higher, you may be in a pinch. Shiro shrugged. What do you mean? The teacher asked with a frown. She clearly had Shiro on the ropes, yet why is she still saying that she was the one in a pinch? Shiro only smiled as she pointed up. The teacher looked up as she saw what was waiting for her. The entire sky was covered with countless spears of ice as each one was rotating to increase penetrative power. The teacher felt sweat drip down her back as she couldn't imagine what would have happened if Shiro was the same level as her. She wouldn't have been able to dodge that mini nor brute force her way through it. Standing up, Shiro tapped the floor with her foot lightly as the ice started to thaw and retract into her palm. The teacher stared at Shiro's back with a complicated gaze. The feeling of jealousy rose up in her as she realized she only won due to brute strength. When put in an even playing field, she wouldn't have even reached close to her. Shiro, that was amazing. Lyrica ran over as Shiro smiled. I still lack an ignore defense attack. Without one, I doubt I'll be able to challenge those of a higher level too well. Shiro shook her head. If she had the stats, she wouldn't have needed to attack the teacher in so many ways to distract her from the main attack above her. And even then, she would have been able to shrug it off. But ignore defense skills are rare, and even then, you need to be a high level to get a natural skill. Lyrica replied. Defense ignore skills were on high demand as a single one may be the key to turning a battle around. Shiro too knew this, but what she was counting on was her Snowmancer class. Each of the firearms come with a passive ignore defense as they dealt heavy damage, the main damage dealer being the sniper rifle. When charged with mana, The sniper could even help her deal a few million damage to a monster's HP. Call Madison. We're going to have her fill her side of the bet from before. We're heading into a dungeon. Shiro smiled. Right now? Lyrica asked, surprised. The faction recruitment will start in less than a month's time. Do you want to still be in the first class while taking the recruitment? Shiro asked with a raised eyebrow. Well, no, but, like, your arm. Lyrica said, pointing at Shiro's arm. Aya, do I have to explain every time? Don't worry about it too much. At the very least, I'll be assisting you from behind while you take Vanguard. Shiro shrugged. The worry Lyrica showed for her was nice, but it was a little too excessive. I see. I know I'm asking a lot, but since you're my first friend, I don't want you to be hurt so much. Lyrica said as Shiro paused. She remembered that Lyrica was still just a 15-year-old girl. She wasn't a seasoned veteran like her, nor was she used to putting up a tough front. Lyrica was just showing simple care towards her well-being. Lyrica, why are you so cute? Shiro grinned, patting her head. Seeing Lyrica like this just made Shiro want to pamper her like a child. If she was taller and had busts, maybe burying Lyrica in her breasts while spinning around a little would be fun. Huh? What brought that thought up? Lyrica blushed. AI, so cute. I just want to pamper you. Shiro wanted to have a voice already, as she'll be able to ignore the annoying typing and just talk to Lyrica. Who's pampering who? I'm older than you. Lyrica called out. Shiro only lazily waved her left hand as they went to the lunch hall. After waiting for a little while, Madison arrived with her two friends. What do you want? She asked, clearly not happy. We're challenging a dungeon, and you should know the rest. Shiro smiled. Which dungeon? Madison sat down. They had to adhere to the rules of the bet they make, otherwise, they'll have to deal with the reinforcers that make sure the contract is followed. I'm thinking of challenging Shadow Temple level 15 to 20. Both Lyrica and Madison looked at Shiro like she was an asylum escapist. Lyrica tapped Shiro's forehead as she frowned. Shiro, I know you hurt your arm, but did you hurt your brain as well? Lyrica asked as Shiro felt like coughing up blood. Madison, on the other hand, was too shocked to even speak. No, I'm not crazy. This is actually done after taking account of your fighting style. Shiro shrugged. Yours as well, Madison. Huh? Wait, what mine? Madison replied, shocked. Yes. While Lyrica is a more attack-orientated fighter, you are more of a defense counter-type attacker. Are you trying to advance into a shield swordswoman? How? Never mind. Yeah, I want to be a shield swordswoman, Madison replied. It wasn't too hard to figure out the direction a person wanted to proceed onto by looking at combat records. So for Shiro to understand, it wasn't too surprising. We don't necessarily need your two friends there. Shiro pointed at the two. It would work out if Madison helped them clear the dungeon, but her two friends weren't needed. What do you mean? Madison asked. We're going to clear the dungeon with you three filling in the numbers. However, to make the run faster, we're going to have you play the part of the main tank, Lyrica as the offense and me as the offensive support. What about us? Madison's friends asked. I don't have a role for you. You can be meat shields if you want. Shiro shrugged. The two were offended but stopped remembering that she's a level 25 ice mage. So as I was typing, Madison, you'll help tank the assassins while Lyrica will kill them. I'll be reducing their reaction speed, so it should be easier for you too. She was initially going to do the dungeon with just her and Lyrica, but knowing that she'll not always be around Lyrica, it would be good if she was able to get some experience working in a party. What better way than to work up in member count, from 3 members, and eventually extending into a full party. As for you two, join if you want. Just don't drag us down. We're not going to drag you down. Just you wait for us to surpass her contributions. They frowned and pointed at Lyrica. Shiro only shrugged as she stood up. In that case, we're going to the Shadow Temple straight away. Get your gear if you don't have it. Shiro typed out as she stood up. What about potions? Don't we need to stock up? Madison asked. I can answer this. Lyrica cut in, not wanting to be left out. Shiro said that low-quality potions in this city have bad effects later on in the line. The best thing to do is let your wounds heal naturally over time. Lyrica replied as Shiro nodded. As Lyrica said, The best thing is to let yourself heal over time. Lyrica may be able to regenerate since she's an elf, and you hardly take damage. However, for us, we can't regenerate. Healing potions or a healer is our best option, Madison replied. Since Lyrica isn't holding them back, her initial anger with her decreased. If that's the case, then you should try to drink as little as possible. Only drink when necessary. Shiro replied, seeing Madison being so cooperative. We'll meet up at the dungeon in 30 minutes. Shiro typed out as Madison agreed and left with her friends. I thought we're supposed to be enemies with her? Lyrica asked, tilting her head slightly. We were, but that doesn't mean we should antagonize each other at every moment. Unless they actively go against me continuously or do something unforgivable, I won't seek out their destruction. Shiro's kinda like a saint then, Lyrica said. Oh please, I'm no saint. I will kill them in the cruelest way possible if they truly anger me. Just ask those scientists. Shiro thought as she remembers the sight of the head scientists after she was done with him. The hero killed the other scientists, but she had the honor of torturing him, opening him up, keeping him alive, a little red carpet of his organs, using the nanobots to eat him from the inside out and making sure he felt everything. What are you smiling about? Lyrica asked, seeing Shiro smile so happily. I just thought of a really good memory. Is that so? Are you able to tell me? Lyrica asked curiously. Maybe next time. ####. When it was time to enter the dungeon, Shiro arrived along with Lyrica. Have you prepared everything? Yeah, I just hope you won't take this too far. The dungeon is roughly 3 to 7 levels higher than us after all, Madison said. Don't worry, the main goal of this dungeon run is to level up. Shiro typed out as Madison nodded. Shiro LVL 25, Ice Mage. Lyrica LVL 12, Elven Swordswoman. Madison LVL 15, Swordswoman. July LVL 13, Mage. Carol LVL 14, Swordswoman. Seeing everyone in the party, Shiro keyed them into the Shadow Temple and entered without any problems. When their vision cleared, they saw that they were in a dark forest. The trees had no leaves, the ground was bare, and the skies were clouded. There was a long distance till the actual temple, as this was the first test. They had to survive the assassins' onslaughts while they walked towards the temple. I won't talk this time, so either you or Madison take charge. Shiro said Lyrica, as her goal for this expedition was to see how Lyrica developed, either as a strong teammate or a reliable leader. Then I volunteer to be leader, Madison said as Lyrica nodded. Sure, but we'll change roles depending on the situation, Lyrica replied. No problems with me. What about you girls? Madison asked her friends. No problem. I don't mind. Okay, in that case then, I want to get our formation down. Me and Lyrica are in front with July and Shiro behind us. Carol, you cover our backs in case an assassin targets the mages, Madison said. Carol nodded and walked behind the group. Now let's go, Madison said. Shiro could have made a blizzard around them and dulled the assassin's movements. But seeing as though Madison didn't even ask her what her basic abilities were, Shiro decided to hold back on it now. That being said, her blizzard was a double-sided blade that would have affected her entire party as well. Asterisk clang clang. Lyrica blocked 2 daggers with her blade as the party perked up. Let's rush through. The assassins don't enter the temple, Madison said as the party rushed forwards. Madison and Lyrica were the main tankers as they would block the assassins, while Shiro and July were the ones to clear them up. Fireball, July would mutter every time she used the skill. For junior mages, they had to visualize their attack skills. Saying out the name would help them get a better picture. This was due to the fact that the skills they get are more conceptual compared to swordsman skills. They had skills such as Sword Cross, Sword Rush, and Killing Cut, while mages had Tier 1 Ice Magic, Tier 1 Fire Magic, and so on. While the mages had wider selections, they needed to visualize the attack or the power decreases. Shiro only shook her head before flicking her hands and killed an assassin in one go. Due to her needing to memorize the myriad of blueprints for her Snowmancer class, she was used to remembering a lot of things. Simple ice magic and the such were an easy task for her. July gazed at her with her competitive spirit ignited. Feeling the gaze, Shiro only smiled as a little competitive spirit amongst children were good. Trying to rush through the first trial quickly seemed good at first, but with the amount of assassins increasing, it became harder to progress. The pressure on Lyrica was exceptionally huge as she had to block several assassins at once. This pressure was both good and bad. Good because it was pushing her attack domain closer to maturity. Bad because this was straining her heavily. Shiro could see the sweat drip from her forehead as she was trying her best to protect the party. Madison also knew this as the rush approach wasn't a good option since their speed wasn't high enough. They were fine in other departments, but they just needed speed. Shiro shook her head as the temperature started to drop. Madison paused, seeing a snowflake drop in front of her. Her arms were getting goosebumps as it was getting colder and colder. The snow increased at a visible pace as they soon realized it was Shiro causing all of this. Raising up her hand, Shiro increased the snow before clutching her fist. The storm expanded as the blizzard howled in their ears. Their bodies shivered as frost could be seen forming on their skins. "Hey, Shiro, stop it. You're going to kill us," Madison shouted. "Madison, look outside," Lyrica said, pointing outside. The storm was raging as they could barely see past it. There were ice statues for which they could recognize to be the assassins earlier. The only reason why they were freezing up as well was due to the unavoidable side effect of using Shiro's ice and snow magic. She was fine, but they weren't. Even when she did try to let the blizzard avoid their location, the temperature was still dropping significantly. "Madison, let Lyrica be leader," Shiro typed out as Madison nodded. Rushing into the fray was an overestimate on her part. She had just assumed that Shiro will help them clear everything, but that wasn't the case. She only helped as much as needed and never more. Just the bare minimum to keep them alive. "Lyrica, you take the lead. How would you exit this situation without my help?" I would take the time to kill every assassin and secure a resting zone for the moment. Get our stamina back before continuing," Lyrica said as Shiro only smiled. The correct answer would have been to retreat. If they didn't have her, they would have party wiped and died right there. "Lyrica, that would have led to everyone dying." "Huh? What do you mean?" Lyrica was puzzled. "Look outside. How many more assassins do you think there are? If not for my blizzard, do you think they'll give you guys room to regain stamina?" Shiro asked as Lyrica paused in understanding. "If Shiro wasn't here, we wouldn't even have the time to breathe. Entering deeper would only lead to death. Everyone is under-leveled and Shiro is the only high level. Without her, there's no hope," Lyrica thought as she smiled bitterly. "The correct answer was we should have left and regrouped a little, right?" Lyrica said. "Indeed. But since our main goal is to level up, you guys regain your stamina. I haven't killed them yet, just put them into stasis," Shiro typed out as they sat down. After recovering, Shiro waved her hands and the blizzard started to fade away. "Kill them now before they unfreeze." Lyrica only nodded as she dashed towards a group of frozen assassins. Twirling the dual-ended poison blade, she smashed two before twisting her body and smashed another one. Madison was shocked seeing how eager Lyrica was to get EXP through killing the assassins. Running to kill an assassin, she didn't want to be left out. Contributions? Shiro, 32%. Lyrica, 29%. Madison, 18%. July, 13%. Carol, 8%. The loot received from the assassins were distributed, but Shiro didn't get anything useful. None of them were blacksmiths or alchemists, so she just recycled the miscellaneous items. Resting up for a moment, they walked towards the temple at a leisurely pace. The reason why Shiro picked the Shadow Temple for the dungeon to level up Lyrica in was due to the temple in the middle. It is the Shadow Trial Temple. The Shadow Trial Temple gave a few scenarios and challenge to the party entering the temple. If they succeed in the challenges, they were granted a boost in EXP. If completed to a good degree, they were guaranteed a level up. A great degree was roughly a level and a 20% boost into the next level. An amazing degree gave almost 2 levels, and finally, the perfect degree gave a treasure and 2 levels. Naturally, one would think about entering the dungeon when they're higher level to gain more experience. But The challenges increase in difficulty dramatically the higher level you are, which is why Shiro's main goal was for Lyrica to level up in the temple. There were 5 challenges as each one represented a stat in one status board except for health. Strength challenge, mana challenge, speed challenge, dexterity challenge, and defense challenge. Each challenge had a boss one had to defeat in the respective category. This is when it was recommended for one to be a lower level. The lower level you are, the easier the bosses will be and the easier it was to defeat them. When challenging the trials, they'll enter separate rooms and won't see each other's progress. Thankfully, the danger of death didn't appear here as the only dangerous area was the start area. Entering the dungeon, they were greeted with a pit of black fire and 6 challenge doors next to the black fire. The strength door had the carving of a muscular arm. The mana trial had a magic circle. The speed trial had a carving of a pair of boots. Dexterity a pair or hands, and the defense had a shield. Which trial do you want to enter? Shiro asked. Let's do them from left to right. So strength trial first. Lyrica said, pointing at the strength trial. No. I'd say we do the defense trial first. Do it while we aren't fatigued yet. Madison disagreed. Lyrica frowned as she had her own reason to choose strength. If we do strength, we have our full power to complete it. There aren't any guarantees for the defense trial. We should get what we can, while we can. Lyrica argued back. But if we do the defense now, we'll be able to at least complete one of each. While not being able to gain a good result from a single door, we can get a decent result from all the doors. So Madison is more of a person who focuses on the wider goal, while Lyrica is a person who focuses more on a single goal. Shiro thought with interest. That meaning Lyrica is better off being the solo teammate that is highly reliable, while Madison is the leader who focuses on the group status rather than a single person. Shiro, what do you think we should do? Lyrica asked as they couldn't come to an agreement. You want my opinion? Then I would say focus on the single, rather than overall. Shiro shrugged. Choosing the overall good was and never will be a task for her. No matter her power, her control, she'll rather focus on those who have her favor. Lyrica being the first one in this world to gain her favor. Che. Madison clicked her tongue in annoyance, while Lyrica beamed happily. Walking up the strength door, they placed their palms on the cold stone. Do you wish to take the strength test of the Shadow Temple? Clicking yes, they were teleported to another room. The light was blinding as Shiro was forced to use her left hand to cover her eyes. When she opened them once more, she found that she was within a medieval castle. Large pillars supported the ceiling as she could see golden chandeliers hanging from the roof. A red carpet was laid out before her, and she wasn't alone. To her left, a beast with 2 pairs of arms, void purple muscles, golden eyes, 2 crescent horns with a scaled spine and tail. To her right, a delicate-looking female with light blue hair, pointed ears, golden eyes, standing at roughly 5 feet 8. She was a beauty. As the first monster to enter the Shadow Temples, you have given permission to attempt the dungeon story, Kingdom Survival. Kingdom Survival? Shiro muttered. Did you say something, my liege? The woman asked as Shiro looked over. Nothing, she replied. Story quest, Kingdom Survival. You are the ruler of the Een Kingdom of the East. To your left is your life companion, the Void Beast. To your right is your servant, failing forces prepared to invade your kingdom as you have to think your way out of this. Story quest, an unfamiliar concept that she had learned about in her time in the school. Certain dungeons contain a story quest where the adventurer is able to partake in the quest. The quests have different objectives as the adventurer had to complete the main one. Doing so will grant the adventurer bountiful rewards, while failing did no harm except for a drop in level. Shiro's mind worked fast as acting awkward could decrease your credibility in the situation. Failing, can you tell me about the current situation? Shiro said with a stern face. Her appearance was still the same, so it was a little odd due to her tone. However, Failing didn't seem to notice. My liege, we have the Thunder King and his army of 500,000 approaching with an estimated time of 3 days. The Fire Queen with her army of 200,000 in 4 days. The Beast Kingdom with 10,000 strong monsters in 2 days, and the Ocean King blocking out escape through the sea as of this moment. Fei Ling replied. How many capable men do we have? Shiro asked. Currently, we have 100,000 capable warriors ready to lay their lives down for the Yin Kingdom. I see. Shiro muttered. Tell me which direction the enemies are coming from. Thunder King from the north, Fire Queen from the east, Beast Kingdom from the west, and the Ocean King from the south. The situation is bad for trying to tough it out. The most dangerous is the Thunder King than the Fire Queen. I need to try turn her favor around with enough firepower to defeat the Thunder King. However, not only do I need my own bargaining chip, but I also need to resolve an issue of why they target this kingdom. Shiro thought. She was able to quickly adapt to the quest as her motto had always been to revolve around being flexible. Fei Ling, why did they target my kingdom again? This stress has gotten to me, Shiro said, massaging her eyes. My liege, they target us because of your treasure. Did you forget? Do remind me. I have a treasury of items. I don't know each and every one of them. Shiro shrugged. It is an item called the Fabricator. We inject mana and it ejects items, though the items must be detailed and fully imagined by the user. If a single piece of mistake occurs, the item is destroyed. Fabricator. For something sounding like that, the mana to material conversion has to be small. Therefore, to make the most out of it, I must make something small but powerful. Shiro, though. She had an idea for a weapon to help them out, but whether or not the Fabricator can create it was another problem. Take me to the Fabricator. I want to check something, Shiro said as Fei Ling nodded. Stepping out of the throne room from what it seemed, they walked towards the treasury with the void beast behind them. Curious, Shiro decided to open her status board. Temporary status. HP 1 400 000/1 400 000. MP 5 000 000/5 000 She frowned a little, seeing her stats as just an HP bar and MP bar. However, if what she planned can be made, then the HP and MP could just be ignored. She wasn't going to fight her way out of a hopeless situation if she could have a hopeful situation. Arriving at the treasury, Fei Ling brought out an orb. The orb itself was colored silver in color, and it was the size of a football. Fabricator, red, can make anything as long as it has the mana and the necessary knowledge. Shiro thought as she decided to test out something. Closing her eyes, she started to imagine a pistol. The frame, the recoil spring, the slider, the barrel, trigger, the hammer, extractor, the loader, the grip, and so on. The visualization of the pistol became clearer as the orb shone with a silver glow. Fei Ling stood by the side as she watched Shiro use the Fabricator. Fabrication complete. Product equals simple pistol. MP cost equals 3 million. Opening her eyes once more, Shiro frowned, seeing the insane MP cost. Due to the fact that she was fabricating the pistol out of pure mana, it takes more MP to solidify into a suitable frame. Fei Ling, how much mana are we able to extract from our residents? Shiro asked. I do not know, but definitely above 50 million should we include our fighting force. Though if we were to use them as well, I'm not sure if they can protect the kingdom to their full potential. Fei Ling replied, understanding that Shiro wanted to use their mana. Do we have anything to store that mana if we extract them? If we do, go set up a public donation under the pretense of donating a little mana to help save the kingdom, Shiro ordered. This situation itself seemed fun as Shiro wanted to see if she could truly complete the quest using an unorthodox method. First, she needed a few important parts to this: a reactor, a primer, a compressor, a remote, and the shell. The reactor must be highly reactive, and she needed a compressor to condense down the energy. Getting a general blueprint in her mind, Shiro started to focus on the Fabricator. From the inside out, the first part is the core. A hollowed sphere of reactive material, followed by the explosive compressor. Inside the hollowed sphere, I also need to add another distributor to get the reaction needed from the core. Outside of the core, I need more compressors before finally finishing with the receiver, what will help detonate all of this. Shiro thought, closing her eyes. The Fabricator glowed a silver light before it recorded the blueprint successfully. Shiro grinned, seeing this. She had no need for an army, no need for complicated relations to survive. Not if she had this on her side as the tipping point for this war. She won't be the one seeking them out, they'll be the one begging her to stop. Fabrication complete. Product equals remotely activated atomic mana pulse bomb. MP cost equals 100 million. Fabrication complete. Product equals remotely activated atomic mana pulse bomb. MP cost equals 100 million. That being said, just relying on this bomb couldn't solve everything. With the insane MP cost, the most she could do is to just set it off once. Forming a relation with the Fire Empress would still be advised. However, just one bomb isn't enough to convince them. She also needed several. The most optimal number would be 2. With 2, they would have the mental thought that she may have another. With that thought implanted, they can't risk it, thus granting her a natural advantage over the relations. First step is to send out a message to the Fire Queen. Ask for a joint operation as the Thunder King is the biggest threat. Suggest to her that I have something to show my power, and she would be collateral if she rejects. Shiro thought. But it'll be a waste to not make the most of my time here, she muttered. Being set in a situation like this could provide her with more opportunities. Martial arts, technological theories, mana manipulation, and most importantly, skills for her ice magic. Since she was focused on nanomancery in her past life, she had no experience with ice magic outside of the rudimentary level. Whilst she did have theories for reaching extreme essences of ice for it to start burning, that was too far down the line that it wouldn't help for the time being. Her current arsenal with the ice was very simple, a field which makes it efficient, spears, pillars, and the such. She was just throwing ice at people rather than using them to the best abilities. Walking around the castle, Shiro tried to look for Fei Ling but paused when she realized an important fact. She was lost. F***CK was all she could mutter, realizing this. Mustering up mana, Shiro wanted to use ice but realized her mana was that of the shadow attribute. If that's the case, then this might work, she muttered as a dark purple mist surrounded her. Walking towards the wall, her body started to flow into the gaps and walked towards the throne room. Seeing the Void Beast still there, she sighed in relief. Void Beast, can you go call Fei Ling for me? Shiro said, not sure if the beast could understand her. Thankfully, it did as it nodded and started to leave. Sitting back onto the throne, Shiro started to plan out her course of action. Stage 1. Gather the needed mana for the atomic mana pulse bomb. Stage 2. Send a messenger to form relations with the Fire Queen. Stage 3. Detonate the bomb in the Thunder King's army to weaken them. This was her plan of action in a nutshell. In between each stage, she would need to work hard to make it a success. You called for me, my liege? Fei Ling said as she bowed. I need your help with a task. I need to send a message to the Fire Queen about a friendly treaty. Also, I want you to help me gather books about the use of ice magic, martial arts, and technological theories, Shiro said as Fei Ling nodded. In which order do you wish that I fulfill these tasks? Help me gather the books first and the public donations. After that, you can send the message to her, Shiro said as Fei Ling nodded. Sitting on the throne, Shiro felt a little idle. She was just waiting for the jobs to be done and not partaken in the jobs themselves. Maybe I should learn some martial arts to improve my close-quarter combat, Shiro muttered as this spare time gave her a moment to think to herself. Closing her eyes, she decided to recount the times she had seen the hero and her party members fight. Their use of recoil, their use of momentum shift, the center of gravity, battle instincts, and finally, force shift. Each and every one of them can help a person dramatically, should they now even just a little. Remembering a routine the fighter of their party once did, Shiro walked off the throne and crouched low. In slow, steady movements, she lifted up her left arm to the height of her head and the right arm in front for the attack. Lock the joints before the attack, store the kinetic force. Like a gun, hammer out the force in one go, Shiro thought as she slowly reeled her right arm back. Moving into a stance with a strong center of gravity, Shiro took a deep breath in and out as her irises narrowed. Punching forward, Shiro used a little too much strength as the momentum carried her body with it a little. She frowned before looking at her hands. My body isn't suited for power combat. I need a counter-force martial arts style, preferably one to do with flexibility. She thought. Her current close combat didn't include any styles as she was just barely able to shift her momentum. Her natural advantage would be her instant acceleration, the ability to go from 0 speed to max speed in a single short burst. While she couldn't use the ability to her full S due to the new body, she still remembered the sensation, therefore, making it easier for her. In the time of her musing, Fei Ling returned with a stack of documents. My liege, here are the books you asked for. I found every book regarding to ice magic, technological theories, and the most suitable martial arts manuals for you. Fei Ling said, placing the books down. Thanks. Shiro smiled. It was but a simple task. The letter and the hawk are ready. You may write the details and send it off at any moment you want. Shiro nodded as she picked up the ice magic books. Seeing the contents, she smiled bitterly as the book was a blur. Of course it won't be this easy. Shiro thought as she had another way of getting what she wants. Fei Ling, what martial arts do you use? Shiro asked. I use the Een style phantom arts. Do explain the style to me. I'm rather interested. Shiro said as Fei Ling nodded. The Een style phantom arts are a set of martial arts designed for women. It requires excellent flexibility and counter judgment. The main focus is to not be hit like a phantom while striking a shock through their bodies. When we are hit, we redirect the force in the shape of momentum and strike back at our enemies. However, that is the failsafe of the Een style phantom arts. We should try to not get hit at all if that is possible. The users of this style are like a phantom, silent yet powerful, without form yet corporeal. Fei Ling replied. Oh, do you think my body suits this type of martial arts? Shiro asked with interest. My liege is a mage, therefore I cannot say. But I believe with enough effort, one can learn anything even if it's just the rudimentary. Fei Ling replied honestly. Very well. Since that is the case, why don't you show me the entire Een style phantom arts? Shiro smiled. Her memory was incredible, so she believes she can remember this style even when she leaves. As Lyrica had previously stated, take advantage of what you can, while you can. Fei Ling nodded as she stepped away and walked to the center of the room. The phantom arts revolves around 5 main concepts. First phantom, illusionary phantom. Second phantom, speed phantom. Third phantom, counterweight phantom. Fourth phantom, internal feasting phantom. Fifth phantom, the soul-stealing phantom. Fei Ling said as Shiro nodded, recording this into her database. The illusionary phantom takes advantage of blind spots and misdirection. You are a mirage, so close yet so far. Shifting her leg a little, Fei Ling raised her arms as she moved in a flowing motion. Before Shiro realized, Fei Ling was already in front of her. Trick the eyes, trick the mind. Strike at the weakness. Second phantom, speed phantom. A set of footwork that focuses on minimal usage for the biggest gain. The constant contraction and the relaxation of your muscles. In a blink of an eye, Fei Ling was already across the room. Third phantom, counterweight phantom. This form focuses on the art of redirection as we primarily use the legs to counter. Fourth phantom, the internal feasting phantom. We focus our strikes like a needle to damage the weakened body, being the tough outer shell. Fifth phantom, soul-stealing phantom. Pure attack, no defense. Go for the kill and nothing less. Seeing her demonstrate each of the moves, Shiro made sure to record everything down. A few hours passed in a flash as Fei Ling was patient enough to teach her all the moves. Closing her eyes, Shiro absorbed the knowledge as she thought about combining a few moves with her current arsenal. Fei Ling, let's have a little spar. Shiro said as Fei Ling didn't understand. My liege, you can overwhelm me easily. Why is there a need for a spar? Because I wish to test out what I've learned. Shiro's voice rang out from behind Fei Ling as she shivered. Her guard was dropped for a moment as Shiro had already managed to get behind her using the illusory phantom in the most basic form. As you wish, my liege. Fei Ling replied as they separated. They didn't get into any stance as there were no basic stances for the phantom arts. They had to flexible and adapt to change. From no stance to every stance. They must not stick to anything like the shape of a phantom, forever changing. First phantom, illusionary phantom. Their body faded for a moment before reappearing in front of each other. Fei Ling was able to continuously get behind Shiro, causing her to frown. Second phantom, speed phantom. Tapping lightly on the ground, Shiro landed on the ceiling before rebounding towards Fei Ling. She casually stepped sideways as she bent her leg towards Shiro. Third phantom, counterweight phantom. Twisting her body, Shiro kicked similarity and redirected Fei Ling's kick. Asterisk crack. Fei Ling was astonished as she never believed anyone could be able to learn a set of martial arts this well in a few hours. Albeit a little on the rudimentary side, it was nevertheless impressive of her. Fourth phantom, internal feasting phantom. Shiro narrowed her eyes as she pivoted on her right leg as a central point before striking downwards with her left leg. Fei Ling smiled slightly before stepping back just before the kick hit. The only downside to Shiro would be her lack of reach. Her area of influence was rather short as she had to get close and personal to make the most of her skills. Even though Fei Ling dodged her kick, Shiro didn't mind as she could transition into another attack. Changing the kick into a stomp, Shiro cocked her elbow as force gathered in her arms. Punching forwards, Fei Ling dodged into the fist and almost phased through like a phantom. Tapping Shiro's inner elbow and pushing the fist, Fei Ling redirected the force. Tisk! Shiro clicked her tongue as she pivoted on her foot and increased her momentum to kick towards her head. Fei Ling kept her composure as she crouched down and supported her entire both with just her right arm. Placing her left foot behind Shiro's knee, she gently kicked Shiro's torso, forcing her attack away. Flipping backwards, Shiro created some distance as she had a grin on her face. This was the martial arts she wanted. It fit with her fighting style as well due to the high requirements for body control and flexibility. My liege, you are a genius for understanding the rudimentary of the Een-style phantom arts in a short while. However, do keep in mind the weakness of the phantom arts. Our reach, defense, and the overall attacking options. The phantom arts are primarily used for countering, therefore, unless they are the attacking force, our exhibited power is reduced by a lot. Fei Ling said with a bow. Are you able to write a quick page about the phantom arts? Shiro asked. Indeed, I can. Fei Ling nodded and grabbed a piece of paper before starting to write down the phantom arts. Just a page will do. Shiro reminded as she wanted to see if she could see the contents. Looking at the blurred writing, Shiro could only sigh as this meant that she'll have to develop her proficiency in the phantom arts later. Forget about this. I'll send the letter to the Fire Queen, Shiro said as she sat on the throne and crossed her legs. Writing down the letter, she gave it to Fei Ling to be sent. Time remaining until Ever Army surrounds Een Kingdom. 3 days. H.A. The Fire Queen sighed out. She had flaming red hair and scarlet eyes. Wearing a slightly revealing outfit that accentuated her enormous bust, she sat in her carriage. After the pressure from the Thunder Kingdom, she had no choice but to invade the tiny Een Kingdom. From what she's heard, the ruler was but a little girl. Little she may be, but she was powerful. Honestly, she hated the Thunder King. He was a tyrant, a greedy tyrant who stopped at nothing to gain that of which he wanted. His newest target, the treasure possessed by the Een Kingdom's ruler, the Fabricator, a miracle tool of the red grade that was able to make anything as long as the person had a clear image. But with the current world's knowledge and technology, the best they could do was mass-produce a few weapons and vehicles. It wasn't really anything too amazing, but what the king wanted he shall get. Such a poor little dumpling, the Fire Queen muttered. Asterisk knock knock. What is it? She asked. It's a message from the Een Kingdom, from their queen. A servant said. I dare say, you haven't checked the contents, have you? The Fire Queen said, narrowing her eyes. From confidential matters like this, having a servant read the letter would be detrimental. I don't dare, Empress. Amen. The Fire Queen nodded and retrieved the letter. Opening it up, the queen was shocked. Fire Queen, I'm going to keep this short. Would you like to form an alliance with me? We both know the power of the Thunder King being too big for the world. However, recently, I have managed to develop a weapon of mass destruction using the power of the fabricator. A single use will allow me to wipe out over 200,000 of the Thunder King's men with ease. As a fellow oppressed rulers, I do not wish to involve you in the massacre if I can avoid it. Naturally, you may also choose to ignore my warning and be caught in the collateral. You can think this as a threat. I don't intend to hide that fact. But the simple statement remains. Join and live or ignore and die. Your choice. If you do not believe me, you may see the destruction for yourself in time when the Thunder King arrives. Pray that you aren't too close to the site, or else some collateral damage will affect your army as well. Queen of the Een Kingdom, Shiro. Kek, this little dumpling is rather feisty. Just her writing tells me of her tone. The Fire Empress muttered. Pardon my Empress? The servant asked. Nothing, you may leave. She waved her hand. For her to adopt an attitude of me, being the one wanting the alliance could mean a lot of things. But primarily, it doesn't matter if I joined or not. She can probably deal with this with her new weapon. The Empress thought with a serious face. She had to tread carefully. Between Shiro and the Thunder King, she would rather Shiro win as their military power is bigger than Shiro's. However, if Shiro can give out what she promised, then she really couldn't hold a candle Shiro and her kingdom. They'll become the biggest threat. Yet for her to ask for an alliance means there are still complications on her side. She desires this alliance but isn't solo focused on it. A convenient boon if anything. Thus, meaning she doesn't mind using the weapon on me as well. Ha ha ha. I'm guessing she doesn't see this situation as a threat, but merely a playground for her weapon. Another day in her life. The queen chuckled as she examined the attitude Shiro adopted. But this empress doesn't like to be threatened. Should the little dumpling's weapon be not up to standard, she can bet I'll be going after her head. The Fire Queen muttered with a cold glint in her eye. In the end, she didn't mind who comes out victorious. Rather, she didn't mind them weakening each other in the war. The more men they lose, the easier it was for her to overtake either of them in the end. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag. How are the public donations? Shiro asked. Due to the urgency of the situation, many have been very willing to donate all of their mana. With that being said, a lot of our denizens have already migrated due to the current affairs. Our total tally for MP gathers amounts to 43 million. Fei Ling reported. Heis, how far can they even go? If the Thunder King is who you say he is, then he'll rather kill a kingdom than to let a cockroach survive. Running away now is just speeding up their death. Shiro shook her head. But 43 million. The weapon needs 100 million. We have 2 more days at most, which should be barely enough time. As for the maneuvers we have to pull after the weapon drops, we will have to adopt a wait and see approach. She sighed. My liege, to explain to this servant why you believe this weapon is the turning point? Fei Ling asked. What do you think of a moment in your life that you were met with unstoppable power? Under certain circumstances, I should try to run. Fei Ling replied. Now, what if you can't run? I'll try to fight. And the final question, what if you couldn't even fight it? I'll die trying. Fei Ling replied with determination. Indeed, but do you think a tyrant like Thunder King will be the same? I believe he will still fight as he is stubborn. Fei Ling said, unsure as to why Shiro pointed out his strong personality. Naturally. Now, I want you to consider his subjects, Shiro said with a glimmer in her eye. His subjects? You still don't get it. This isn't a fight between kings and individuals, but rather the army. Since he is so oppressive and favors an iron fist, do you think his subjects are truly loyal? Shiro grinned with her eye narrowed. The face, which didn't belong to the body of a young child, caused Fei Ling to shiver. The faith and anger the people have against the Thunder King is our advantage. Humans don't like to be restrained harshly. It's their natural instinct. When faced against something so terrifying that it breaks their will, they'll try to leave. With Thunder King's attitude, he'll kill the leavers and force them to fight. Shiro explained with a gesture of her open palm. When you give that fear an extra push and douse them with promises and a way out, do you think they'll take that? In other words, a rebellion? Fei Ling muttered, realizing Shiro had already simulated the situation with the description of the Thunder King she had given her. Indeed, The Thunder King would force his subjects to fight, but when I give them that extra ray of hope, I covered his army into my pawns. With his ego and personality, he would never believe something he did was wrong. So this battle will serve as the guillotine to put a crack into his mind. And when the Fire Queen chooses a side due to my weapon, the crack becomes a deadly fissure that will split him in half. Shiro smiled sinisterly as she clenched her fist. A broken king is no opponent, mere trash by the roadside. Killing him then will be a mercy, Shiro said, tilting her head back. But that being said, failing, a king is a lonely position. No matter how strong you are, there are times when you are tested. A tyrant like the Thunder King has no companions to support his burden. No one he can trust, no one who can help him. He is wary of every subject under him. Who will betray him? Who will stick with him? The constant pressure placed on him tires him out. Failing, will you be my right-hand woman? One who I can trust, one who I can leave my back to, and one who I can call a friend, Shiro said, looking at Fei Ling. Fei Ling kneeled on her right leg as she placed her hand over her heart. To I, Fei Ling, there was no greater honor than to serve you, my liege. But I was wrong. The highest honor would be to accompany a king not as a servant, but as a friend to support his back and share the burden. If I were to be as rude, I indeed wish to become my liege's right-hand woman and friend, Fei Ling said as Shiro smiled. Then please call me liege no more. Call me Shiro, as you are my friend before servant, Shiro said, standing up and placed her hand over Fei Ling's shoulder. Yes, my El Shiro. Fei Ling corrected herself with a smile. Shiro grinned, seeing the change in attitude. Either way, we're playing the waiting game now. Once we collected enough mana, they'll be dancing in my palms. Shiro shrugged. So let's use the rest of these days to improve the Een-style phantom arts. As you wish, Shiro. ####. Shiro, we got 100 million mana now, Fei Ling said, walking into the throne room. She saw Shiro examining the orb as she looked up. Pass me the mana first. Afterwards, keep collecting, Shiro said as Fei Ling nodded. The storage for the mana was a neon green crystal. Shiro grabbed it and saw the information. Extreme mana storage, red, 100,000, 290/500, 000,000. Oh my, a maximum storage of 500 million, Shiro muttered in surprise. Transferring the 100 million mana to the orb, she returned the crystal back to Fei Ling. Try to gather as much as you can. We still have a day left until the Thunder King arrives, Shiro said as she nodded. Leaving the throne room, Fei Ling went to continue with the public donations. Fabricators stored MP, 125 million. In her time of waiting, she would deposit all of her MP into the fabricator. Seeing the 9-digit number, Shiro sighed as it was going to be gone in a few short moments. Remotely activated atomic mana pulse bomb created. -100 million stored MP. Looking at the bomb in her hands, Shiro grinned. The remotely activated atomic mana pulse bomb, or the mana nuke, has enough power to wipe out anything in a radius of 30 miles. Naturally, it won't activate unless primed with the remote. Only after the remote is broken can the bomb be activated using physical force. The best part about the bomb is that it is almost impossible to dodge. The speed of which it sends out the explosive pulse was too fast for most to dodge. Shiro in her prime with nanotech supporting her might be able to barely outrun it. Barely. And that was when she was the strongest in the world. Flicking her hand, Shiro summoned a shadow soldier. Over the course of an entire day, she managed to figure out some of the skills that came with her current abilities. Instructing it to place the bomb roughly 35 miles away from the kingdom, Shiro sent a shadow bird to make sure it was in the correct space. Covering her eye with her right hand, Shiro saw what the bird saw. Go, she said as both the bird and the soldier dashed out the throne room. There was only one day left before the Thunder King's arrival. Crossing her legs, Shiro had a smile on her face, thinking of the surprise she had in stock for him. Kufufufu. The feeling of playing someone around your palm is quite enjoyable, Shiro muttered. Right now she was like Buddha tricking the Monkey King. No matter what the Thunder King did, he would lose. Retreat? Sorry, that just gives her more time to make another bomb. Attack? Sorry, this miss already has a bomb ready for you. Hide. Then I can just bomb your kingdom into submission. The king had to fall someday. Thunder King arrival ETA, one day. Standing above the city walls, Shiro narrowed her eyes as she was looking through the shadow bird's vision. The Thunder King's army of 500,000 men stomped in sync as it created quite an intimidating scene. If that bomb is activated through shock, you all will dead by now. But I don't want everyone to be dead. Only 250,000. She thought as the bird started to morph. Seeing a clone of Shiro land in front of him, the Thunder King stopped the march. He was a muscular man standing at almost 7 foot tall, hulking physique, yellow hair, and yellow eyes. He looked to be around his 30s. Have you come to beg? He sneered, looking at her with disdain. Not as much beg, but rather a warning. Turn back now, and your men may not die a hopeless death. Shiro smiled. Ha 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 ha. Even if you mustered up something with the fabricator, what can you possibly create? The Thunder King grinned as he jumped off his mount and landed in front of Shiro. Due to the high difference, Shiro had to crane her head all the way back as it wasn't comfortable for her at all. Looking at Shiro closely, the Thunder King started to realize her beauty as he paused. He was about to grab her chin and get a closer look when she disappeared. Don't fucking touch me, Shiro warned with a cold glare as she was behind his head with a blade to his throat. Kuhuhu, join me as my concubine. I'll let your kingdom live as dowry, the Thunder King said. Shiro narrowed her eyes as she stood up and stepped on his head. Jumped off, she landed safely and started to walk away. I take this as you agree? The Thunder King grinned. HM? Sure, whatever. Shiro said, not even looking back. I didn't think you were such a coward, but this king likes the woman being submissive like they should be. The Thunder King grinned. If Shiro was still a snow girl, the entire battlefield would have been encased in ice from the murderous intent raging inside of her. I'll agree to sign your death contract, Shiro thought as she had already activated the remote. The bomb should be ticking down now. Why don't you dash? Asterisk bibu uaam. ####. The Fire Empress had increased her pace for the last day, as she wanted to see the so-called weapon of mass destruction. Resting on the top of the mountain with her troops, she had her army survey the surroundings for any enemies. Hee, the little dumpling is brave. She doesn't have a single soldier out. The Fire Queen muttered, seeing the empty battlefield for which the Thunder King arrived at. My Empress, do you really believe the young queen of the Een Kingdom having a powerful weapon? Half and half. Honestly, it's a gamble. For her to have that much confidence that she sees me as a bonus must either mean overconfidence, or that she was telling the truth. For a person to become the ruler, they wouldn't make threats without some backup in place. What if the young queen was really lying this entire time? She wouldn't have told me to watch the destructions then. The Fire Queen smiled. Soon, she saw Shiro and the Thunder King face against each other as she grinned. Kuhahaha, just look at that ridiculous height difference, she said in humor. Standing up, she walked to the edge of the hill they were on and watched in interest. She saw the Thunder King try to grab Shiro's chin but missed, and Shiro was behind his head. Seems like it may just have been a false alarm, the Fire Queen said, seeing no resemblance of a weapon. In that case, ready up troops. We're going to end the Een Kingdom, the Fire Queen shouted. Yura! Dash! Asterisk boom boom. Light flashed as the queen and her army were blown backwards with a tremendous shockwave hitting their bodies. Blurg! The Fire Queen spat out blood as she was knocked back the furthest. URG, what the hell? She called out as she struggled to her feet. Looking to her right, her pupils shrank in fear. What was half of a hill was reduced to ashes as there was a giant crater between her and the Thunder King's army. It was as if God decided to punch the very earth itself. Nothing was spared. This was her W weapon? The Fire Queen muttered in shock. Ha ha ha, ha ha ha. No wonder. Why would she even care about me if she had this? The Fire Queen shouted out in insanity and fear. A quarter of her army was eradicated as they were, unfortunately, a little too close. My Empress, are you all right? A servant asked, limping over. All right? Yeah. Why wouldn't I be all right? We're going to kill the Thunder King. Ha ha ha, what is a king to a god? We at least have hope of killing the king, ha. The Fire Queen rambled, almost as if she was crazy. The power Shiro outputted with the bomb was more than anything a mage could do in the world. They just didn't have that kind of power. And yet, she wanted to fight against that. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag. Heh, that should convince the Fire Queen, Shiro muttered as she looked at everything from her shadow birds. The mana nuke could be controlled as she could choose the shape of the blast. She made sure to increase the intensity near the back of the Thunder King's army and the Fire Queen's army. Creating a shadow horse, Shiro dashed towards the remnants of the Thunder King's army. Well, I did warn you, did I not? Shiro said as she saw the Thunder King struggling to stand up. He had bloodshot eyes as his demeanor was like that of a mad beast. Infusing mana to her voice, Shiro made sure the entire army could hear her. Listen up. I did not want this war as it was your tyrant of a king. Should you help me end his reign? I can assure you that I will never turn the weapon against my own subjects. Did you not see my earlier display? I tried to be peaceful, but your king does not appreciate the matter. Now that he had forced my hand, unnecessary casualties have been created. Choose wisely and end this farce. Hearing Shiro, the army stood up slowly as the Thunder King became enraged. All of you. I am your king. Did you forget whose country your families are in? He shouted as it worked to a certain degree. Screw you. I have no family. A soldier shouted back. Asterisk blurg. Whether it was from the comment or the blast, the Thunder King threw up a little mouthful of blood. Shiro held back a laugh as she saw the king's threat fall short. If you choose to surrender and help me end this, king, I can guarantee your family's safety. Fire Queen has come to assist the Een Kingdom. A voice called out as Shiro grinned. Everything was in place, and the king had fallen. You, all of you, die for me. The Thunder King shouted, but Shiro cut him off. Clutching her hand, a shadow blade appeared as it cut right through his neck when he least expected. She was about to speak again to the army when she paused. Looking around, Shiro found herself in a dark space. Scenario complete. Unorthodox method of completion. Calculating results. Thunder King's army would become yours. The Fire Empress comes under you as a servant. The Beast Kingdom ran, and the Ocean Kingdom gave up. Evaluation. Though unorthodox, it was a perfect solution. Out of 4 kingdoms, 2 now serve you, and the other 2 are destroyed. All whilst no casualties on your side. Final rank. S rank completion due to the use of pure force. Rewards. 3 levels, 1 treasure, Shadow Empress title, and 200 free attribute points. Shadow Empress. Plus 25% of all stats. Plus 25% stealth. When attacking without the enemy locking onto you, stealth attack, sneak attack, plus 50% critical chance, and plus percent 20 critical damage. Wow, Shiro muttered, seeing the rewards, though she understands why it was so rewarding. If it wasn't due to her treasury of blueprints and knowledge, she would have been hard-pressed to do anything. Facing off against a 500,000-strong army with just 100,000 strong wasn't an easy task. Not to mention, the fabricator couldn't record the blueprint of an incomplete item. You had to visualize the ins and outs. An easy task for her, yes. Others? Not so sure. If one were to try form diplomatic relations, it would be hard to gather the support of the other kingdoms due to the sheer power of the Thunder King's army. However, despite all of that, she completed it with a single mana nuke and a small number of mind games. Distributing her attributes, Shiro couldn't but grin. Name: Shiro, weaken 5 days, 15 hours. Race: Snow Girl, evolution criteria yet to be met. Title: Shadow Empress. Level: 28. Class: Snow Girl, Snowmancer. HP: 5700/5700, true value 15,500. MP: 22, 900/22, 900. STR: 70-120, plus 45. VIT: 100-180, plus 70. Int: 190-250 plus 140. AGI 140-200 plus 55. Dex 130-150 plus 40. Def 40 plus 105 equals title bonus. Unassigned points 0. Balance 500,800 US dollars. Equipment tap to display. Skills Snow Girl. Tier 2 Ice Magic, Passive Regeneration, Blessed by Ice, Snow Magic, Faded Snow Movement, Cold Aura. Snowmancer. Dagger Creation, Nanotech Engineering Tier 1, Sword Creation. Other. Minimap, Inspection, Disguise, Harden, Equipment, Lesser Fear, Equipment, Sensory, Equipment, Mana Barrier. With her MP tipping past the 20k mark, her HP was following up closely. It was just a shame that her weakened state remained unchanged. The good news, however, would be that the days she spent in the other quest world took off a little of the timer, thus leaving her with less than 6 days to wait. As for her final prize, it was the treasure. Her heart pounded in anticipation as she tapped the icon. An egg? Shiro thought. The egg was black in color, roughly the size of a school bag, and had purple smoke patterns. Shadow egg? Shadow egg? Shiro muttered. Sign lifeblood contract? Seeing an unfamiliar term, Shiro paused and frowned. Tapping the writing for the term, she saw the description. Lifeblood contract. Forming a contract with your heart blood, you and the beast are connected deeply. A portion of the beast's skills and power will be shared with you upon maturity. When you die, the beast dies. When the beast dies, you are fine. Well, isn't that a little unfair? Shiro muttered. However, it wasn't her concern. As harsh as it was, she didn't want to die because the beast was road-killed. Pressing yes, Shiro's pupil shrank as she felt like a dagger stabbed into her heart. Wincing slightly, she coughed up a mouthful of blood. Shiro cursed in her mind as the blood splattered over the egg. Absorbing the blood greedily, a dark mist started to flood out as Shiro could see the egg crack little by little. *CRRR. The crack expanded as Shiro saw the contents. It was a bird with black and dark purple feathers, a narrow head, purple eyes, sleek body, and long feathered tail. A shadow? LVL1. HP 2, 400/2, 400. MP 5, 000/5, 000. Seeing the name, Shiro was surprised. When something shows as a question mark, it's either she was too low level to know it, or that she wasn't supposed to know at the moment. The little bird flapped its wings and landed on Shiro's left shoulder. Rubbing its head against hers with affection, it chirped lightly. Cute, she thought, seeing the little bird's actions. Hey, little bird, are you male or female? I would check, but you birds only have an opening for the sexual organ, Shiro asked in humor. Hearing the question, the bird only tilted its head before flapping its wings. Then I'm just going to call you Ian. It sounds like a unisex name. Shiro shrugged but flinched. Oh right, my arm, she muttered. In the time she did the quest, her arm was fixed. Now that it was back to the way it was, Shiro would need to get used to it again. Little Ian, are you able to hide your title? It will bring this miss much trouble, Shiro said, giving the bird's head a little rub. Ian LVL1. HP 2, 400/2, 400. MP 5, 000/5, 000. Well, that works. Giving the bird one more playful tap to the beak, Shiro smiled as she looked for an exit. Would you like to leave the resting zone? Tapping yes, Shiro felt her vision shift as she was back in the main hall. She saw that Lyrica and the rest of the party were still doing the last test, so she made an ice chair and sat down. Crossing her legs, she tapped her thigh as the bird hopped over. Shiro couldn't hold the smile back on her face as she played around with the bird. It didn't take too long as the rest of the party came out one by one. Shiro, you've already finished? Lyrica said in surprise. Shiro was about to open her mouth but realized she was mute again. Sighing in annoyance, she pulled out the phone and started to type. Yes, I have. I even got a pet bird out of it. Shiro typed out whilst giving the little bird a little massage. How it's so cute, Lyrica said as she tried to reach out for it. The bird jumped in shock as it dived into the sleeve of Shiro's uniform. Ah, little birdie, I'm not a bad person, Lyrica called out to the bird. However, the bird didn't even peek out as Shiro could feel it shiver in her sleeve. Chuckling lightly, Shiro stood up. Now that we've finished the trials, let's head back. Walking out the temple, Shiro asked another question. So how were your trials? It wasn't too bad. I could have done better though, Lyrica sighed, feeling disappointed with herself. What about you, Madison? Huh? Me? Oh, it was all right, Madison replied, feeling surprised that Shiro would ask her as well. The way back was rather stale as they didn't really have anything to talk about. Shiro just played with the bird the entire time. Lyrica looked at the bird, feeling a little jealous. Am I feeling jealous of a bird? Lyrica thought, realizing how petty it was. Shiro only raised an eyebrow, seeing Lyrica's change in emotion. Are you all right? What's on your mind? Shiro asked. Nothing, Lyrica replied, trying to smile it off. Shiro only shook her head. She couldn't baby Lyrica all the time, so if she wanted to figure this out herself, Shiro will let her do just that. If you need help, just tell me. Shiro smiled. Shiro, Lyrica muttered. How the hell is this one-sided pink aura being created between them? Madison thought. If either Shiro or Lyrica was a guy, then it would make sense. But both of them were girls. Unless she's bisexual? Or just homosexual? Madison thought, looking at Shiro. Her expression was calm and didn't fluctuate at all, while Lyrica, on the other hand, was slightly flustered. She would occasionally look towards Shiro as well. So, Lyrica's the bisexual? Madison thought as she was getting interested. Leaving the dungeon, Shiro parted ways with them as she wanted to find some food for her bird. Hey, Lyrica, Madison called out as Lyrica stopped. What is it? She asked. So, between you and Shiro? Madison started as Lyrica nodded. What about it? Do you have feelings for her? Madison asked. It wasn't that she disliked her for being bisexual, but rather, it was her first time seeing someone like that, so she was curious. At the mention of having feelings, Lyrica started to imagine certain scenes. Asterisk poof. Her face became red as she didn't know what to say. And no, we were just really good friends. I still have something to do. Goodbye, Lyrica shouted, running away in a panic. She definitely has feeling for her, Madison thought with a grin. Getting involved in love stories were definitely the most interesting thing for her. Forget fighting, an interesting love story gets her going. ####. Walking around the city, Shiro pulled out an E-rank mana stone. By logic, since she was a monster and ate mana stones, the bird should eat them too. Poking its head out of her pocket, the bird looked at the stone before turning away. Maybe it doesn't like to eat mana stone? Shiro thought, throwing the E-rank stone in her mouth. After she's leveled up, the E-rank mana stones would no longer fill her up no matter how many she ate. They were like jelly beans that were sweet to the taste but never filled you up unless you ate in disgusting amount. Rubbing her stomach, Shiro could only lament at her hunger since she had a limited amount of D-ranked mana stones. A meal for her cost around $90,000 due to the price of D-ranked mana stones. Even if she were to use her savings, it wouldn't last her more than a few days. This miss is literally shoveling cash into my mouth to feed myself, Shiro muttered with a silent tear. Her stomach was aching for substance, so she could only pull out a D-rank mana stone. The second she pulled it out, the bird looked at it before looking at her. It made a sighing gesture as it grabbed and threw the D-rank stone reluctantly into its mouth. Shiro felt a twitch creeping up on her mouth as she saw the little bird's action. Littleine, that was this Mrs. Meal, okay? You can't just go around stealing it, Shiro said, tapping the bird on the head. She let it be for now as it may grow up to be useful for her. It was a mysterious shadow-type beast pet after all. Not to mention, she also had the lifeblood contract with it. AI, Littleine, you're lucky that this miss here is nice. or else you be my soup for tonight." Pulling out another D-rank mana stone, Shiro threw it into her mouth. Chewing the stone, Shiro enjoyed the feeling of a full stomach. However, as if learning its lesson, In held out its wings and did a pitiful eye towards Shiro. "Fine, here you go." Shiro smiled wearily as she gave it another mana stone. She could always get more in the dungeon, only that it requires a bit more work now that she also has to feed In. In chirped happily as Shiro giggled slightly seeing this. Whilst walking, she saw a crowd of people gathered in the distance. Her curiosity was piqued as she hopped over. There was a stage in the center as different people walked up. Here comes contestant number 20. Will he be able to dodge the arrows and take the number 1 spot? Let us see. An announcer shouted out. The contestant in question waited as 10 pillars rose up around the stage. Breathing deeply, his gaze was focused as he got into a martial art stance with a sturdy center of gravity. Asterisk few 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 few. Blunted arrows shot out as he twisted his body to dodge the arrows. Narrowly passing him, the arrows hit a mana barrier that caused the arrow to lose momentum. This protected the spectators as they could watch without any problems. No matter where the man went, the arrows followed. He only managed to survive 33 seconds in the field. Oh, only 33 seconds. Unfortunately, he has not taken the number 1 spot of 2 minutes and 10 seconds. Can anyone take this challenge on? With an entry fee of 30 D rank mana stones and a reward of 10 C ranked mana stones. You heard me. 10 C ranked mana stones. On top of that, even if you don't get top place, there are still prizes for top 10 C rank. Shiro's eyes glowed with hunger and greed while In was the same. It was drooling a little from its beak as Shiro wiped it clean. "Little In, if I do this, I get 8, you get 2, okay?" Shiro said as the bird shook its head. It put 7 feathers up for itself and 3 up for her. "Okay, listen here, Little In. I'm the one doing the test. So, by rights, more should go to me." The bird made a difficult expression and held up 4 feathers for her and 6 for it. 6 for me and 4 for you most. None negotiable. Shiro said bluntly as the bird shook its head. "It's that or we don't do the test at all." That was a lie. She wanted the C-ranked stones so bad. Just thinking of their taste made her appetite increase. Hearing the offer, In wanted to reject but didn't dare to, for was still better than none. Nodding its head reluctantly, it retreated back into her pocket. Chuckling slightly, Shiro looked for what should be the registration area. It was a simple registration area as it had a leaderboard by the side with the top 10 ranks and times. There was quite a big queue as Shiro waited with patience while watching the other contestants. On to contestant number 21. With a flexible build and amazing judgment, can he enter the top 10? The contestant in question was a tall and skinny male around 6 feet 4. Nodding, the man signaled for the test to start. The arrow shot forwards as the man narrowed his eyes, using only his thumb, index, and middle finger on both hands. He held the shaft of the arrow and redirected then to another arrow. His eyes moved around constantly to pinpoint the arrows as it made sure the entire area around him was covered. He's using his stats and reaction to simulate an attack domain around him, Shiro thought, seeing the man pinch arrows out of the air and throw them to another arrow. However, that proved to be extremely taxing as sweat was pouring out of him. He's finished, Shiro thought as she turned her attention away. Oh, and he's out. With a time of 1 minute and 14 seconds. He's just outside the top 10. Looking towards the leaderboard, Shiro's only task was to get the 10 mana stones. Therefore, she didn't need to pay attention to anyone else. Rank 1. Ling time, 2 minutes 10 seconds. Naturally, Shiro didn't think she can do this easily. There were people higher level than her attempt this, but what they don't have was her experience. She could easily see all the arrows and react. However, the limiting factors were her arm and physic. This is where the In-style Phantom Arts came in. With the third Phantom, Counterweight Phantom, she would be able to exert her body to its maximum potential without harming her arm too much. Once it was her time to register, the person paused as he looked at Shiro from top to bottom. Pointing at her ice-casted arm, he raised an eyebrow. "Don't mind it. Just register me. I have the stones. Shiro typed out. Okay, but I'll need you to sign this contract so that any injuries would not be on our part. The man said as Shiro nodded. Reading through the contract, it was as the man said. Any injuries occurred in this event will be the participants' responsibility and should not hold the organizers accountable. Signing the contract, Shiro walked over to the contestants' tent as she could see a lot of men stretching their bodies. Surprisingly, she also saw a familiar face in the tent. Ah, Shiro. Helion quickly jogged over with a smile. Hi, Helion. Thank you for making my friend's weapon last time. It was very well done. Shiro smiled. Ahaha, don't worry about it. It was a pretty interesting experience for me as well. Helion grinned as he rubbed the back of his head. I got some feedback from my friend if you want to hear it. Shiro smiled. For a blacksmith, hearing feedback from their weapon was greatly appreciated as it helped them understand how well they made their weapon. Oh, feedback? Sure, lay it on me. Hopefully, it wasn't too bad, Helion said, feeling a little nervous. Hopefully, he made a decent impression on the young lady in front of him. She said the balance of the blade was great. Located at the middle of the handle, the balance allowed her to really be flexible with her movements. A great cutting edge and design allowed her to pull out 120% of her strength. She thanks you greatly. Shiro typed out. Phew, that's good to hear. Helion grinned. Also, what happened with your arm? He asked, pointing at her arm. I got injured in a dungeon. It'll take a few days to heal. Nothing major. You should be careful in a dungeon. Though, why don't you just use a potion to heal? Helion asked, confused. I wanted it to heal naturally in case I get permanent damage from the potions. I see. Helion quickly looked for a chair as he pulled it over for her. Here, take a seat. Thank you. Shiro replied, not rejecting his goodwill. He also, just out of pure curiosity. How old are you? The craftsmanship of that blade was very nicely done. Me? I'm 18, almost 19. Helion grinned. Is that so? You look like it, but don't feel like it. The experience you showed was beyond your age. Ha ha ha. Well, my family is a blacksmithing family. Since I told you my age, can you tell me yours? He asked. Sure. I'm 13. Helion was shocked seeing a level 28 age 13. Not to mention, her temperament was way beyond a 13-year-old. Chuckling slightly at his reaction, Shiro typed out another line. Why are you shocked that I'm 13? Well, it's just that when I was younger, I was in love with a girl who looked my age. After playing with her for a year, I confessed to her. Only then did I find out that she was 32 and married. I was 10 back then. Helion sighed, pulling on a chair for himself to sit on. So you feel in love with a 10-year-old looking married woman when you were 10? Shiro typed out, holding back a laugh. I know. Now I don't judge by appearance, but rather by temperament. He shrugged. At what age did you think I was then? Shiro asked curiously. I thought you were above your 30s. Helion replied truthfully. 30s? This miss has a young temperament. What do you mean by 30s? Shiro asked, surprised. She had always thought she gave the feeling of a person in her 20s and not her 30s. Well, it's just how you speak, like someone with a tone of experience. Well, type like someone with a lot of experience. Helion said as Shiro thought and agreed. Her age totaled up was definitely above her 30s. Whilst they were talking, another contestant walked up to the stage as he wore nothing but a pair of pants, showing off his ripped body. This one is a veteran, Shiro thought as she could clearly tell the compressed power hiding in that body. Declan LVL 50, martial artist. Martial artist? Shiro thought, seeing the class. There were times where there would be a different class compared to the base systems. These classes are similar to hidden professions, but are rather taught than discovered. Example being the martial artist class. Her guess was for Declan to have learned martial arts as a child, and when he classed up, he chose martial artists as his class. Interested in his capabilities, Shiro crossed her legs and narrowed her eyes just ever so slightly. Helion, who was beside her, paused, seeing this as he understood this pose. It was the pose she pulled when she observed him make the blades for her friend. a pose which tells people that she's curious or interested. Perhaps it's a habit of hers? He thought. Her aura was creepily calm and silent as she was entirely focused on the thing that interested her. Declan stood in the center as his eyes were deadly focused. Cocking up his arms and legs for maximum explosive potential, he punched out as soon as the arrows were shot towards him. The first hit connected with the side of the arrow. Pulling back, he hit another arrow with his elbow. She watched with great interest as his hits were accurate and powerful. Declan was similar to Lyrica. His attack domain was on the verge of forming as he was able to deal with the initial levels easily. However, as the arrows increased in speed, he had to compensate by guessing the directions. This gave him a few close calls, but nothing major. However, to Shiro, it was like watching everything in slow motion. Her eyes were tracking everything with ease, but her body was another question. Seeing and reacting were two different things that were both important. If you can see but can't react, you lose. If you can react but not see, you also lose. The delicate balance between sight and reaction was compulsory for any good fighter. This is what she was seeing in Declan right now. While his sight may not be as good, there was a balance between sight and reaction. As for Shiro, she was like stuffing an F1 race engine in a small family car. The engine was powerful, but the body of the car can't keep up. Force it, and the car breaks. Say Helion. When you see him fend for himself, what do you see? Shiro asked, wanting to get a third-party opinion. What do I see? Well, I see that he's struggling. The arrows are getting closer and closer to him the longer he survives for. Helion said as he was able to track the arrows quite accurately. What else do you see? Shiro asked, wanting to test Helion a little. What else do I see? I see the area around him shrink. I see him locking up his punches for maximum attack. Helion replied, putting his hand on his chin. Shiro smiled hearing the answer. From what she could see from her surroundings, not many people were able to see the detail of Declan locking up his arm. Can you see his mistake? Shiro asked. Mistake? He shouldn't be locking up his arms at this stage of the defense. His task is to survive, not kill. He shouldn't be locking up his arms for that amount of time. During a defense like this, the best thing to do is to try to conserve your stamina. That being said, his endurance is ridiculous. Shiro said as the smaller the attack domain becomes, the more tenacious Declan became. He was sweating bullets, but his eyes were energetic as ever. Hold up. Is he developing a technique right now? Shiro narrowed her eyes as she observed everything. If his main task was to get number 1, he would be conserving stamina. But the longer he goes, the more forces he is using. He was actively pushing his limits higher and higher the more stamina he uses. He was forcing shut his attack domain to make it stronger the closer it got to him. Narrowing her eyes, Shiro had a grin as it was not often you see a person like Declan. Like an overlaying ocean current, he was making an area where the arrows couldn't penetrate no matter the direction. The first layer rotated clockwise, the second anti-clockwise. For any arrow that passes the first layer, they'll be stopped by the second. If it passes the second, it will break due to the colliding forces of both layers. Never mind. It wasn't a mistake, but rather, I was looking at it from the wrong perspective. He is discovering and refining a technique to repel the attacks. In a few short moments, he was able to completely secure the area with a 3/4 of a meter around him. Seeing that he succeeded, he couldn't hold back a grin. Ha! Stamping down, he caused a shock wave to spread out as it pushed to the arrows away. I got what I want. You can carry on with your event, he said simply before leaving. So it seems that Declan has forfeited. Therefore, his time shall not be recorded. The announcer shouted out. Shiro and Helion looked at each other. Did he just pay 30D ranked mana stones just to have arrows fired at him? It's either that, or he just wanted to brag and look cool. Helion replied with a huff. Shiro shrugged with a slight giggle hearing Helion's jealousy. Don't worry about it. Since you make weapons, your physic is pretty good. Just strip your shirt and get the same results. Shiro replied with a smile. Then that I shall do, Helion said as he took his shirt off. His refined physic was in view as Shiro wasn't too surprised. But the shock factor was still there. His muscles had a slight bronze color, as she could tell they were powerful. Hylian's number was 29, as he was 3 spots in front of her. When it was his turn, he walked out with his muscles proud. His goal for this was rank 3, C rank materials. He wanted to work with them, so he could complete one of the requirements for his class up. Fu! Breathing out, Helion had fire flare up around his body as if he was a warrior of fire. The fire wrapped around his shoulders, arm guards, and neck. His eyes glowed orange as he made a fire war axe. The axe had 2 sides, while one was an axe and the other a hammer. Since this is still my physical ability, it shouldn't be against the rules, right? Helion asked. As long as it isn't an area of effect, then it is fine. The announcer nodded. Then that's good. Helion grinned. Slamming the pommel of the axe into the ground, more fire erupted up as it covered Hylian's body. What was half armor was now full armor. Arrows shot towards Helion as he twirled the war axe in his hands and smacked away the arrows with ease. Shiro raised an eyebrow seeing Hylian's actions. First off, what he used first was what was known as the elemental true armor. When a person reaches a certain proficiency with their respective elements, they gain an armor with that element. The armor itself takes a lot of MP per second, as Shiro also had her own one with the nanotech. But the drain for the nanotech true armor was ridiculous. Just wearing it for even a split second now will drain her. But the truest surprise for her was how early he managed to unlock the true armor. The normal average of unlocking the elemental true armor was around the late 3rd class. For Helion to get it during his 2nd class up, only genius could be used to describe him. The elemental true armor boosted one's stats along with their perception. Knocking down the arrows is an easy task for Helion right now. Stopping at 1 minute and 50 seconds. Helion took 3rd place. Removing his armor, he turned around and was about to wave to Shiro when an arrow pierced his pants and almost entered a certain hole. PFFFF. Shiro laughed out loud as that arrow could have gone up his rear. Ha 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 ha. Shiro was clutching her stomach as she almost fell off her chair. If it wasn't for the fact that he looked so refreshed having gotten 3rd just to get his rear stabbed, Shiro wouldn't have laughed this badly. Ah, Shiro, don't laugh, Helion said, embarrassed. I'm sorry, it's UST2 funnu, Shiro typed out with difficulty. It was hard for her to type with her laughing so hard. Helion sighed as he let his guard down a little too much. Now there was a hole in his pants where the arrow struck. Thankfully, there was still a few more contestants before it was Shiro's turn, giving her time to settle down. When it was finally her go, she managed to calm herself down. Sorry about that. It was just a little unexpected. Shiro smiled. Unexpected is putting it easy. Helion sighed. Walking up to the stage, the audience started to mutter about Shiro. An injured kid is trying this? Is she going to be okay? She even got an ice cast on her arm. Is she going to work with just one arm? What a waste of 30D ranked mana stones. I know. How many takeaways can I get with the E rank mana stone? Huh. Shiro only smiled hearing the comments, as it was always fun to prove them wrong. The rules of this survival were simple. No area of effects, no outside help, and when the arrow strikes the torso, you lose. Naturally, this means her cold aura wasn't allowed. However, she took this into account. The main reason as to why she was confident was due to the counterweight phantom together with her observational abilities. Making an ice spear in her hand, Shiro twirled it a little as she got used to using the spear without her right arm. In her prime, Shiro was a master of her dagger attack domain and several other weapon domains. The staff and spear were one of them. Naturally, she couldn't form a domain right now due to 2 reasons. First, her right arm. Without the use of her right arm, she couldn't fully exert the power of her attack domain. The second reason was her body. Due to the different body shape, she had to figure out the best way to use her current body from scratch. Littleine, don't poke your head out, okay? Shiro whispered as she could feel the bird respond positively. Giving the announcer a signal, she focused on the devices firing the arrows. Asterisk click 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 click. Out of the myriad of noises blocking her senses right now, she was able to filter out the mechanisms working in the devices and guess which one fires first. Before it even fired, Shiro crouched low and twirling her spear. Asterisk few. The arrow was shot right after, and she caught it with her spear. In style Phantom Arts, third Phantom, counterweight Phantom. Giving the spear a light twirl, she redirected the arrow towards the second arrow that fired. Pivoting on her leg, she used the other end of the spear to redirect another arrow. Her mind was working like a machine right now as she put it to overdrive. She was listening out for the machine click, seeing the arrows, reacting and redirecting the arrows, repositioning herself before doing the same thing again. Little did she know, tiny circuitry patterns were showing up in her pupil and hair. However, they were barely visible. To the people watching, they were shocked, speechless. Shiro looked like she was in a dance. With only one arm, she was able to redirect every arrow coming at her from every direction. She didn't do fancy flips or anything like that. She just pivoted on the spot whilst twirling her spear. The ice itself left a slight blue trail behind it due to the speed she was twirling it. Helion sat on his chair in shock. This was the first time he saw her perform, and he knew her experiences were vastly more superior than his. He may be a genius for unlocking the fire elemental true armor, but in an even playing field with Shiro, he would, 100%, get destroyed by her. Mentally counting down, Shiro decided to stop at 3 minutes. Any further, and her body wouldn't be able to keep up with her, even if she did predict a few moments before the arrow was fired. Flicking one of the arrows up, she let it hit her torso gently. The devices stopped as Shiro blocked the remaining arrows. An amazing performance by the young lady Shiro. With an astounding display of precognitive foresight and body control, Shiro was able to deflect arrows into one another. With a final score of 3 minutes and 22 seconds, she defeated the previous score by a whole minute. We still have a few more contestants till the end, so unfortunately, you are not the winner just yet. The announcer called out as Shiro nodded and walked away. Sitting back down, she saw Helion's speechlessness and chuckled. "Are you all right?" she asked. "No, I'm just rethinking my life choices and the fact that I, a level 50, was outperformed by a 13-year-old level 28, Helion muttered, causing Shiro to laugh slightly. If only he knew that I'm only a few weeks old. Shiro thought, but didn't want to break the poor man's pride. There weren't any more changes as Shiro kept her #1 spot. Receiving her 10C ranked mana stones, Shiro couldn't hold back the grin and the sparkle in her eyes. "Wow, you must really have wanted those mana stones," Helion said, seeing Shiro about to drool. "Yeah, I did." Shiro typed out as stored away the C-rank mana stones. Keeping 4 out, she put them in her pocket as Ian chirped happily. "Oh, were they snacks for your pet?" Helion asked, seeing Ian. 4 of them were. The rest are for me." Shiro smiled. She wasn't lying, just that they weren't used for any other purpose other than filling her stomach. "Heh, is that so?" Helion nodded in understanding. It wasn't uncommon for people to keep a few mana stones on them, as they never know when they want to commission a weapon or armor to be made. Ian popped his head out the pocket and swallowed one of the finger-sized mana stone in one go. Shiro was surprised how it didn't choke on the stone, but what did she know about monster physiology? Ian LVL 5. HP 5,000/5,000. MP 10,000/10,000. Did the little guy just almost catch up to my MP in one go? Shiro thought in shock. "Hey, little Ian, why don't you eat another mana stone to level up again?" Shiro asked. Ian made a painful expression as it pointed at its bloated belly. He wasted the C-ranked mana stone. She thought, realizing this fact. A low-level monster couldn't possibly absorb everything the mana stone gave. Therefore, it was surprising Ian didn't explode into chunks. "Greedy little fellow. I'll confiscate your stones for now, so you don't waste them," Shiro said, storing away the stones. Ian wanted to grab them but was too bloated to move. It was as if Ian transformed into a grenade. To Helion, Shiro fed a stone to Ian, who became bloated. She then opened her mouth a few times before closing them again. "Anyways, I'm going to go back to make a new weapon using my new materials. If you need anything commissioning, just come to me." Helion smiled and patted his chest. All right, I might need you for something else, but not right now. Shiro smiled. Helion felt excited on the inside, but curbed it once he remembered that she was 13. Sure, just look for me and I'll help if I can, he said before walking away. Now that she was alone, Shiro decided to explore a little before going home. Before the faction recruitment, she had a few goals in mind. 1. Reach level 30+. 2. Complete E-rank raid. 3. Raise Lyrica's level to 20+. These are the 3 tasks she wanted to complete before the faction recruitment. Not only will it give Lyrica the edge in the recruitment, but she will also have a head start. By doing a raid ahead of time, she is able to get a feeling for how the quests are. As for why she wants to reach level 30, it was because she gets her first mini-class up. Since she chose to become a snow girl, she has smaller level ups that allow her to eventually reach 5S if she wished. The tests are given at level 25, 30, 35, 40 and finally, level 45, which brings up to 5S just before her level 50 class up. Walking back to the Adventurers Guild, Shiro looked for the receptionist. Hi, I'd like to update my status. Shiro smiled. From what she's read, once she classes up into D class, she'll gain access to more missions, raids, commissions, and information access. All right, can you give me your ID card and place your hand on the crystal, please? The woman said as Shiro nodded. It says here that you registered 2 weeks ago when you were level 20, is that correct? Shiro nodded as a response since her only free hand was holding the crystal. All right, done. You're now a level 28 D-ranked adventurer. You now have access to D-rank quests and E-rank raid party leader status. With this, you're able to lead an E-ranked raiding party. The woman said as Shiro nodded. Name, Shiro. Estimated age, 13. Rank, E+-D. Class, Ice Mage. LVL, 20-28. Seeing her updated ID card, Shiro thanked the lady before walking over to a terminal. The terminal was easy to use as she had to scan her ID card to gain access to the quests. There were several types of quests ranging from the easy collection to the hardest raids. One could also find commissions from other cities, but they were extremely dangerous. Clicking on the raiding tab, Shiro searched for an appropriate raid. E-rank raid, Night Garden LVL 20. No noobs under level 18. Adventurers, 29 of 35. E-rank raid, Knight's Garden LVL 20. Need healers and tankers. Adventurers, 25 of 35. E-rank raid, Goblin Castle LVL 20. Just need to fill numbers. We got D-class helpers. Must be level 15+. Adventurers, 34 of 35. The list went on as Shiro looked for a suitable one. She needed to make sure the raiding party wasn't too high level due to backstabbers, and that the party wasn't too low either to not party wipe. E-rank raid, Spider's Whispers LVL 20. New party mostly made up of level 20s. Adventurers, 22 of 35. Finding this one to be quite suitable, Shiro decided to apply for this along with a letter. I'm a level 28 Ice Mage with 20k MP. I want to bring my friend who is a level 15 Elven Swordswoman. I can guarantee her combat abilities myself, and I will also look after her in the raid. This is to just give her some experience. Shiro sent over as she waited for the reply. After the Shadow Temple, Lyrica managed to level up to 15 by the end of the trip, boosting her stats by a decent amount. Since the raid party request was put up not too long ago, the time to wait for the reply was short. In just a few minutes, Shiro already received a reply. We don't mind that she's a level 15. However, she'll have to take care of herself. Not only does she need to do that, we'll also need to conduct a little test on her if that is fine. Since she needs to that the basic survivability even with you looking after her. We'll also need to sign a contract saying her death is not on us. It'll be on you, as you were the one to bring her to the raid. Seeing the reply, Shiro nodded in understanding. It made sense. Having a level 28 on the team helped a lot and can help boost the survivability, even compensating for a level 15. However, if the level 28 focuses on keeping the level 15 alive, then it may put the entire team in jeopardy. Therefore, A test was needed to make sure the level 15 can survive on their own. Yes, that isn't a problem. Can you give me the time and date of this test? Shiro asked. We'll do the test tomorrow as we are still waiting for people who meet the bill. The time of the test is 1 p.m. in the afternoon, and the venue will be the training facility just down the block of the Adventurers Guild. Can you give us a basic description of you and your friends, as we know who you are tomorrow? My name is Shiro, and my friend is Lyrica. I'm 5'3", black hair and blue eyes. Lyrica is an elf around half a head taller than me. She has blonde hair, green eyes, and a pretty good figure. Okay, see you tomorrow, and we hope your friend can match up to the bare minimum. Since an adventurer like you will be a great asset to our party and help boost the survival rate. Saving the information to her phone, Shiro walked out of the guild. Another thing she wanted to do today was to buy the level up requirements for Lyrica's weapon. Get it to level 15. The requirements needed to level up Lyrica's weapon was 5x E rank mana stone, 2x LVL 15 sword type weapons. The E rank mana stones were easy, so was the level 15 sword types initially, but due to this city being quite a low-level city, the lower-level equipment had priority. Therefore, what would be an easy weapon to get became hard to get. Walking to the auction house, Shiro smiled remembering how she scammed them last time. Entering the auction house, she walked to one of the terminals and scanned her ID card. Searching up level 15 sword-type weapons, Shiro frowned seeing none being available. Do I have to get Helion to create them again? She thought. The most important fact was the materials, as she didn't know what he needed. Not to mention, he was probably making his C-class weapon with his newly acquired materials. Sighing to herself slightly, she walked over to the blacksmith's area and looked for anything that fit the bill. Level 10 spear, level 12 bow, level 8 dagger, level 20 rapier. There was a myriad of weapons as only a few matched the requirements. Shiro knew that the higher grade the weapon used for upgrade, the better the stat increment. However, due to the fact that her nano growth infuser was just a prototype, white weapons do an okay job while green would do it perfectly. Seeing a level 15 green cleaver, Shiro waited in line. Can I have that green cleaver? Shiro asked. Gimme 100,000 US dollars and it's yours. The man said as he knew the swords were in demand. Sure. Give me the crystal and I'll pay. I've changed my mind. Gimme 150K. The man said, surprised at the fact that she didn't even bat an eye at 100K. Shiro only smiled before looking down on her phone. No thanks. I'm not that desperate. 100K was me being nice. Since you don't want it, I don't want your sword either. She turned around and started to walk away when the man tried to grab her to make her stop. Dodging out of the way, Shiro looked at the man blandly. Ahaha, I was wrong. 100K no problem. The man smiled shamelessly. I gave you the chance and you didn't take it. 50K. Take it or leave it. Shiro grinned. The man was about to reject when he realized she might leave for good. The cleaver had been there for a while now. Even if the blades are in demand, a cleaver wasn't the best blade. Okay, sure. 50,000 US dollars no problem. The man hurriedly pulled out the transaction crystal. Shiro nodded as she transferred 50K over. Storing the sword in her inventory, Shiro walked away calmly. The man thought he got a good deal while really, Shiro was the lucky one. She made sure to put pressure on him by agreeing easily to his first price and left as soon as he changed the price. She made sure her demeanor was unchanged as it put the pressure on him that she'll leave if he hesitated. With that blocking his rational thought, he would only hesitate for a moment before agreeing to her second price. 50K. She smiled to herself as the occasional scam felt good on the inside. Hee hee. Who else to SC, persuade next? She thought as she wasn't scamming, just persuading in quick succession. Her next victim was just as short-lived as her first. This time only worse as she managed to persuade the blade off him for only 40K. She was about to head home when she and Helion came face to face again. He had the face of a broken child who had his heart broke. Are you okay? Shiro asked. Why didn't you come to me if you wanted the swords? I would have made you too easily. He said, feeling a little betrayed. Because I didn't want to bother you. You also had your new materials, so I wanted to see what you did with them first. Not to mention, I'd rather watch you focus and make a masterpiece than to make throwaway trash. Shiro typed out as it was the truth. Well, it included truths. I see. Then you should have just told me. Helion shrugged. Too easy. Shiro thought. No, that's bad. Don't think like that. Shiro reprimanded herself as it was a bad thought process to have with friends or friends-to-be. I still need to go back to Lyrica, so I'll commission something next time. Shiro smiled as she bid Helion a farewell. Asterisk knock knock knock. Knocking on Lyrica's door, Shiro waited patiently. Ah, it's you, Shiro. Lyrica said with a smile as she was excited. However, her face blushed when she remembered what Madison said. I got a present for you. Shiro smiled as Lyrica welcomed her into the room. A present? You shouldn't have. Lyrica said, but was jumping for joy on the inside. You'll be needing it for what we're doing next. Shiro shook her head. Next? What are we doing next? Lyrica thought as her face blushed at the thought. What is the girl thinking about? Shiro thought, seeing Lyrica blush a lot recently. Are you okay? You've been blushing a lot recently. Shiro asked as she placed her palm on her forehead. This caused Lyrica's blush to deepen as she waved her hand frantically. It's fine, nothing really, she said hurriedly. Shiro only furrowed her brows a little before pulling out the two weapons. Here are 2 level 15 sword-type weapons and 5 E-rank mana stones. You should upgrade your weapons since we're going to be doing an E-ranked raid. Shiro smiled as she leaned back slightly and crossed her legs. Ah, so that was what you meant. Lyrica muttered with a silent tear falling. She was too focused on the 2 level 15 weapons that she didn't see the E-ranked raid part. What else did you think I meant? Shiro asked. Nothing. Don't mind me. Pulling out her dual-ended poison blades, Lyrica set it down on the ground and grabbed the 2 level 15 weapons. Placing both weapons besides the poison blade, she set up the E-ranked mana stones as a pentagram. Lyrica was following the diagram the system gave her as she was nervous, unsure if it would work since upgrades always had a chance to fail. Shiro only smiled, feeling her worry. Her nano growth infuser was special amongst the tools to make a growth weapon. It had a 100% success rate, the only problem being the initial synchronization. If the weapon rejects the nano growth infuser, then it doesn't matter if the evolution rate was 100% since it couldn't evolve. Tapping upgrade on her screen, Lyrica watched with anticipation. From the poison blades, the handle glowed a blue-silver as metal tendrils slowly crept out from the orb. What the hell? Lyrica cried out in surprise. She had heard of weapons being upgraded before, but never anything similar to this manner at all. The metal tendrils grabbed both swords as it dug deep into the construction of the blades. The blade itself flaked apart as the nanobots consumed everything with vigor. The 5 E-ranked mana stones started to float upwards as it slowly rotated towards the center handle. Electricity sparked as the metal tendrils started to spread outwards into the blades on either side, reinforcing them. 2 neon blue orbs could be seen on the base of the blades as circuitry patterns expanded from them and coated the entire blade. This small upgrade of 5 levels turned the blade from a mix of metal and monster parts to almost looking like a piece of alien tech. Shiro, Lyrica muttered, seeing the dual-ended blade. Tell me honestly, this isn't a normal upgrade, is it? Lyrica asked. No, it is not. I combined it with something I found in the dungeon from before. With it, I was able to make your weapon a growth-type weapon. Shiro replied, telling her a little of the truth. Ignorance was a bliss, and this was the same. Lyrica was too weak to know about nanobots right now. A single slip of a word, and Lyrica will be having the entire government after her. The appearance can be attested to aesthetic choices, but if Lyrica talked about nanobots, then they could no longer bluff their way out of this situation. Is that so? But what was the item for it to make such a big difference on the weapon? Lyrica asked. I don't know, but it worked. Shiro smiled. Indeed it did. Lyrica nodded. The new stats for the dual-ended poison blades surprised her by how good they were for just a level 15 weapon. Dual-ended poison blades, blue, LVL 15/20. Creator, Helion, plus 20/30 sharpness, plus 15/25 AGI, plus 15/20 dex, plus 15/20 poison, plus 20/30 durability, plus 15/25 STR. Requirements to evolve into LVL 20. 15x E rank mana stone, 2x LVL 20 sword type weapons. The average sharpness of a level 15 blade was only a plus 15. Even the stat-focused ones had only plus 20. Yet, this weapon was a mix of abilities and still gave her plus 20 in sharpness. So the reason I wanted you to upgrade this blade is because you're taking a test to be on the raiding party of an E-ranked raid. The spider's whisper. Shiro typed out. PFFFF what? Lyrica cried out in shock. She was just a level 15 and Shiro wants her to join a level 20 raid. Shiro, I'll die. Lyrica said as Shiro smiled with a slight sadistic vibe. I'll make sure you don't. Shiro grinned as she tapped Yin's little head. If Yin was a cat, she'll look like a kid version of a mafia boss. But I can't do it. Lyrica sighed. I believe you can. I want to trust in your abilities to cross levels and your hidden proficiency. Shiro encouraged. She believes in me. Lyrica thought as she imagined Shiro saying the sentence. It repeated over and over again in her mind as she felt a strange sense of power rising up in her. I'll do it, Lyrica said as Shiro smiled. There you go. But I want to trade, Lyrica said as Shiro found it reasonable. What do you want? Shiro asked. I want a shopping trip with just me and you. You'll get dressed however I want, is that okay? Lyrica asked, face red. As long as it's nothing lewd, I don't mind. Shiro nodded. Dressing up wasn't a problem for her, though she never did anything similar in her past life. It was just her fighting for survival and strength rather than actually doing thing a girl would do. So this experience would be a fun time for her. All right, let me get changed, Lyrica said as she walked to her closet. She paused and turned around to Shiro. What's up? Shiro asked. Can you look away? Lyrica asked. Sure, I guess. Shiro said as she spun her chair around. Lyrica was acting quite strange as Shiro didn't understand why. Shrugging her left shoulder, she waited patiently for Lyrica to finish. The sound of clothes ruffling could be heard. You can turn around now, Lyrica said as Shiro nodded. Wayo, Shiro muttered as Lyrica looked as if she had a major makeover. Wearing a light green dress decorated with floral patterns, Lyrica had her shoulders exposed. The sleeves of the dress reached her wrist. The front of the dress reached her thigh while the back reached her calves. In addition to this, she wore white stockings and a pair of small brown boots. The entire outfit accentuated her amazing figure as Shiro couldn't help but applaud as a fellow woman. Tying her hair into a ponytail, Lyrica stood there with a red face. What do you think? She asked. It looks nice. Suits you very nicely. Shiro smiled. Hearing the feedback, Lyrica felt joy well up inside her. Thank you, Lyrica said, holding onto Shiro's hand. Shiro couldn't write anything due to Lyrica grabbing her hands. Sorry. Lyrica let go when she realized Shiro couldn't type. Don't mind it. But tell me, where are we going to shop? I want something that won't rip mid-fight, Shiro said as she didn't want to start fighting nude in the middle of a boss. It'll be highly distracting. That being said, she still had no idea what her dress was made of. It was the first thing she had when she woke up and it was indestructible, but the damage still passed through to her. We'll be going to the civilians area since we just want to get some casual wear. Lyrica smiled and pulled on Shiro's arm. Shiro smiled wearily as she stood up and followed after Lyrica. When they were walking out of the school, Lyrica attracted several eyes as she was showing off her beauty. The other students were speechless seeing two of the most beautiful people in the school walking side by side, especially with Lyrica dressing herself up. To them, Shiro was the type that looked good in anything while Lyrica looked like a gentle breeze on a hot day. Refreshing. Madison only watched with a grin seeing the two. I wonder if Shiro was the one who suggested this or Lyrica. Kuhuhu, she thought with interest. Leaving the school grounds, Lyrica brought Shiro to the shop she liked to visit most often. The shop dealt with dresses, and the such as Lyrica had the intention of making Shiro a dress-up doll. All right, so in trade of me following you to the E-ranked raid, Shiro, I want you to dress in whatever I want you to write? Lyrica asked. Yes, that's what I agreed upon. Then try this on, Lyrica said, grabbing a dress and pushed Shiro towards the changing rooms. Holding the dress, Shiro looked at it in surprise as she shrugged. All right, if you want me to try anything else on, just grab them now to make it easier, Shiro said as Lyrica nodded. Quickly grabbing a few dresses, she slowly piled up a mountain of clothes. Shiro felt her mouth twitch seeing this many clothes. Does this girl have a fascination about clothes or something? Shiro thought. Though the truth was Lyrica being more fascinated about her compared to clothes. The first outfit was a simple one. A dress shirt colored light yellow. A pair of black skin-tight pants that reached around her calves. Walking into the changing rooms, Shiro took off her dress and was about to put it on when she stopped. When they did the experiment on her, they had caused a ton of irreversible scarring on her body. Now that she was reborn, there wasn't a single blemish on her. Smiling lightly, Shiro saw her reflection and felt grateful for a second chance at life. Changing into her outfit, she wore a summer hat and walked out. Lyrica paused seeing Shiro, ignoring that fact that she basically had a block of ice on her arm, which she had no idea how she managed to change with that attached. Shiro was extremely beautiful, almost like a young model. Amazing! Lyrica called out as she grabbed another outfit for her. Shiro nodded slightly as she took the outfit. It was a red and gold cheapao that exposed a little of her thighs, which she covered with some black stockings. The outfits kept coming as Shiro played along. It was surprisingly fun to spend time like this with her friend. Eventually, they settled with 3 outfits. The first being a snow-white hoodie, short jeans and stockings. The second being a white summer dress and a light blue silk jacket. And finally, the last one was a t-shirt and jeans. Shiro was about to change back into her normal dress when she realized something off in the dressing room. There was a camera that wasn't there previously. Someone must have snuck it in when I was away, Shiro thought. Grabbing the camera, she narrowed her eyes as nanobots formed in her palms. Controlling them to enter the camera, Shiro projected the footage on a small nanoscreen and saw that they recorded nothing. Unfortunately, she couldn't see the face of the assailant. Wiping out all the stored data, Shiro decided to implant a mini trap inside that would cause the camera to explode and send sharp shrapnels at the assailant. There was also the chance of someone else picking it up, so she installed a fingerprint recognizer. As long as it was the same person, the trap will go off. If it wasn't, the trap would lay dormant. Making sure that the camera was disabled, she scanned the room and surroundings to make sure there were no one looking before finally changing again. Perverts, the lot of them, Shiro muttered with a shake of her head. Picking up the 3 outfits, Shiro walked out of the changing rooms. Lyrica, let's go, Shiro typed out as Lyrica nodded. Due to Shiro trying out different outfits, they attracted a small crowd since Shiro herself was a beautiful girl. Reaching the till, Shiro eventually paid for everything since they were more expensive than Lyrica thought. Even though she's been saving up her money from the previous dungeon runs, the expenses of clothes were still above what she could afford. It made sense since the dungeon gave them a lot of money. Even low-level people can just spend a little of their time in a low-level dungeon to make some bucks. Therefore, the prices had to go up accordingly. Halfway through paying, Shiro was sure she heard a faint scream as her eyes were cold. Leaving the store, Lyrica had a satisfied face since she was able to witness Shiro in a lot of different outfits today.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.